I'm Lauren, that awkward plant girl. Welcome back to my channel. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you guys for popping in. Today we're going to talk about 5 underrated terrarium plants. These plants are hardly ever talked about. You'll see them occasionally here and there. Some collector will bring them up that, hey, they're pretty good for terrariums, but you don't actually ever see them used very often. They're definitely not one of the top main ones. Everybody's always talking about peperomia and begonia, and I do it too. I really do. I have a whole peperomia and a whole begonia terrarium. I freaking love them. They're amazing. But these ones are definitely underrated, and I'm trying to use them in my terrariums more. So let's get into it. First up is a cissus. Okay, this is a cissus amazonica. They stay very tiny. They're great for tiny, smaller terrariums. They're even a little too small for my 10-gallon terrarium. If you need something bigger though, you can get a cissus discolor, which is a beautiful purple terrarium plant. I actually bought a cissus discolor plant and tried to keep it in my normal 40 to 50% humidity. It was not having it. I had it up here on the shelf. It was not having it. So I ended up having to chop it back, have the propagations in this jar, and this is how I brought the little stick that was left over back. So I will definitely show you that, and then I will show you exactly what they're supposed to look like when they're mature, because when they're immature, they're these beautiful little green leaves, and then they get this beautiful purple coloring once they're matured. It's so pretty. They have a reddish back and a purplish front. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Absolutely stunning plant. So if you're trying to find something, they're also climbing plants. So if you're trying to find something to climb in a larger terrarium, like my 75-gallon one, these guys are it. Totally it. Next up, this plant is hardly ever talked about for terrariums. This is beautiful plant right here, Tradescantia. Tradescantia love their humidity. They make these giant creeping mats and they trap all this humidity underneath their root systems. And everybody thinks that Tradescantia are not good for terrariums because they'll get so large, but it's really a whole bunch of tiny vines. They also don't like a lot of water on your leaves, but when you're watering in your terrarium, you're supposed to water around the edges and have the water spill down the sides and follow the glass all the way down into the water reservoir to be evaporated back up, and then it creates a humid environment in there. They love humidity. They thrive in humidity, especially if you can get the smaller ones. You can also get a Calissia repens, which is a tinier version of a Tradescantia. Oh my gosh, they are beautiful in terrariums. These also like quite a bit of light, so if you have a higher light terrarium, it just depends on what lighting situation you have going on. But these will definitely grow and thrive in a high humidity environment. This is a bunny bellies. It's soft, velvety, gorgeous. It gives Micans vibes, but in a Tradescantia growth pattern. They'll creep out on the ground, or you can have them kind of hanging over. It's really, really cool. Another one that you might enjoy, this is a Tradescantia teddy bear vine. They thrive as well. They're very fuzzy, very furry. Think like African violet type of situation. They don't need a lot of nutrients. You don't need to give them a lot of care. Prune them occasionally to keep them kind of bushing out and branching out. But they do very, very well in terrariums, and they're definitely not talked about as terrarium plants. So with these ones, you want to stick them in the craggy, rocky areas and just kind of allow them to kind of creep. Don't stick them in an area where it's going to be more muddy. So if you have an area closer to some water part of your terrarium, or if you have it at a slope so the water is going to kind of be more in one area than another, definitely keep in mind that these guys are going to want to creep and trail. Their root system is not very thick, not very dense, and they'll root very quickly. You can just take a cutting and put it right in the terrarium. It's amazing. Definitely highly underrated. So the next one I want to talk about is Pilea. Pilea are often confused with peperomia. Pilea can handle more light than a peperomia. They can also handle lower light without losing all of their coloration. So they'll still grow pretty quickly. You can also take just a cutting of a Pilea and they'll root just fine. They have fuzz on their stems, so just like with tomato plants, all of those little tiny hairs are going to turn into roots. So you don't necessarily need a node to root a Pilea. They can root anywhere along the stem. They'll even root their leaves. But if you do want them to grow a whole new plant, you do need a node for them to push the new growth out from. They're often confused with peperomia, but their growth pattern is different than peperomia. They're more bushy naturally. Also, unlike peperomia, they will not root from leaf cuttings and stem cuttings and those kind of things. So you've got to keep that in mind. The distinction is an important one. Also, the leaves get a little bit bigger more quickly than a peperomias will. Peperomia tend to stay smaller and more compact. So it depends on what area of your terrarium that you're trying to put them in. These will add a quick pop of color over a larger area. So if you're trying to make something look more bushy, you're trying to hide a not so pretty part of your backdrop or something like that, you're trying not to use as much moss and have more leaf coverage, these are going to be great for that in the long run. This is a Moon Valley Pilea. This one adds a lot of different texture. And then there's also a dark mystery Pilea, which adds like this deep gothic look. They're also kind of shiny and sparkly, definitely adding depth. You can see that they have spear-like leaves, which is just so cool. They're stunning, absolutely stunning. Another one I wanted to talk about, I talked about in one of my terrarium cutting videos. This is a Friendship Pilea, also called a Norfolk Pilea, I believe, or maybe the Norfolk is a look-alike. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But you can see that it's got like this deep coppery, but almost pink. It's got summer glory philodendron colors going on there, if you know what I mean. But they've all got a lot of texture. They've got a lot of glitter and sparkle to their leaves. They propagate very easily in terrariums. They're definitely perfect for pretty much any terrarium you can try to put them in. A highly underrated plant. They often, like I said before, get lumped in with peperomia. They're completely different. Completely different. They add different texture and grow differently, and they're definitely really cool. You should give them a chance. Okay, so this next one is actually fairly new to me. I've seen the Piper crocatum out there quite a bit. That's like a pink and dark glittery veination. It gets very large and it's usually a climbing one. This is another kind of Piper. There's a whole bunch of different varieties of Piper out there, but this one grows in a more bushy format and works great for terrariums. This one was gifted to me by Brittany back in December. I freaking love it. It's so gorgeous. It's got like alocasia vibes, but it's also got the feel, the texture, and the growth pattern of a Pilea. It's just really, really cool. So far, it'll root just fine because it's got the fuzz on the stems. So it roots just fine as far as just having a cutting goes. So you treat it like a Fittonia or a Pilea when you're propagating it. And you just cut it with the stem. I am making sure that it has a node. I do not know if it's necessary. This is the first Piper I have. It was gifted to me. I have not done a whole lot of research. All I know is that I put it in a terrarium and it's freaking thriving, and I haven't heard anybody talk about having Pipers in terrariums. Probably because a lot of them were expensive for the last year or so. They're starting to come down in price though. Like there is a lot of them out there available with a lot of different colors, textures, growth patterns. Definitely, these guys are being slept on. You guys gotta go check them out. So they're so pretty. I freaking love them. And look how cute this tiny little baby leaf is. I just, it's adorable. It's freaking adorable. And it's like having a smaller alocasia in a terrarium tank. And I freaking love it. It's the coolest thing in the world. Definitely check them out. Probably, I'm thinking it's going to grow like a Fittonia. It gets bigger, not super quick. It grows slower than a Fittonia, but still fairly quickly for a plant. So keep that in mind when you're putting it in places and when you're taking these cuttings. Might take a little bit to fill in, but it's definitely going to fill in. All right, so I had to pull this out of my terrarium tank because this is the only way I can keep this particular plant alive during the summer months in my room. It gets to be about 100 degrees in this plant room in the summertime, and a lot of my plants do not like that. So I've had to adapt and overcome. This plant, I have been straight up told you cannot keep this type of plant in a terrarium. But then I've seen people make entire humidity cabinets around it, and it wasn't making any sense to me. I didn't understand. And then I found out that a lot of people were having issues with this particular plant rotting when they put them in terrariums. So I found a way around that. This is a Hoya Bella. Hoyas in general love their high humidity. I think a lot of us know that. But what people were doing was just shoving Hoyas on top of normal terrarium soil. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't like soil. Hoyas are naturally epiphytic plants. They grow on trees. So what you have to do in order to get the Hoya to survive in the terrarium, especially a smaller, thinner Hoya, is to stick bark as the base over top of the soil, and then you put damp sphagnum moss over top of that. Then you lay your Hoya on top of that. You're mimicking what they would get in nature in the root system, and they're getting that high humidity, and then they do like quite a bit of light. So like the light that makes this Hoya Bella happy in this tank bleaches out my Peperomia keto. So you've got to keep that in mind and make sure that you're putting it either closer to the light or putting it in a very brightly lit terrarium. So it just depends on what you have going on. You may have to change the placement of it. You can also put it on back walls. Just make sure you have the bark and then the sphagnum moss mimic that growing up the tree kind of deal that they're going to get in nature. They can grow globally, so they have a lot of different temperature requirements depending on the Hoya, but the smaller leaved Hoyas definitely thrive in a terrarium. So definitely give them a shot. And I will be sticking more Hoya in my 75-gallon tank, and this is going to be one of them. I have a Hoya at the very base in the front. It's not getting very much light. All the other foliage blocked it out. It still grew. It did not die. It did not rot. It just grew slowly and very small. So that's what happens when you don't give it enough light. I'm going to move it to the top of that tank in a couple of days, and then we're going to see it grow super quick. It's going to pop off like crazy. If you have smaller leafed Hoya and you're kind of wondering what to put in your little hanging backdrops of your terrariums, or just kind of at the base to kind of creep around the base, but it's a brightly lit terrarium, Hoyas. Totally go with the Hoyas. All right, I've got lots more terrarium stuff out there for you guys. I've got a whole terrarium playlist. I've got more terrarium stuff coming. I freaking love my terrariums. Be sure to subscribe. I will give you updates. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!